皆さん、こんにちは。あつこです。Welcome to my class. 私は今、タイのバンコクに住んでいます。タイは今、午後2時です。タイは今、1年で一番暑い季節ですよ。皆さんはどこに住んでいますか？どこでこのライブを見ていますか？チャットに書いてください。皆さんはどこに住んでいますか？それから、皆さんはどのくらい日本語を勉強していますか？チャットに書いてください。こんにちは。朝早いですから人が少ないですかね。はい。じゃあ、今日は助詞の勉強をします。助詞は英語で particle です。は、が、と、で、に、もなどですね。はい。助詞 are very small words and normally they are not pronounced clearly, but they are very important because 助詞 determines the meaning of the sentence. I met many Japanese learners who look speaking fluently but omit particles or use incorrect particles. Their Japanese sounds very broken. But actually, joshi is not so difficult. It's very logic. Once you understand the logic, I'm sure you'll be able to use correct particles when you make sentences. So don't worry. はい。では始めましょう。じゃあ、私はたくさんクイズを作りました。I want you to try my quiz today. そう、紙とペンを用意してください。I recommend you to prepare pen and paper. ね。では始めましょう。ではクイズを見てください。はい。括弧に入る助詞を書いてください。Write the appropriate particle for each parenthesis. Some of them may not take particle. In that case, write but. Okay? You don't need to write the whole sentence, but only particles are enough. We'll check the correct answer after we finish question 3. 私は2回読みます。So guess the answer. 1. 私は毎朝、彼、電車、大学、行きます。私は毎朝、彼、電車、大学、行きます。2. 何、スーパー、行きますか？自転車、行きます。そうですか。誰、行きますか？一人、行きます。何、スーパー、行きますか？自転車、行きます。そうですか。誰、行きますか？一人、行きます。3. ジョンさんはアメリカ来ました。今、東京住んでいます。東京、大学、経済、勉強しています。もう一度。3. ジョンさんはアメリカ来ました。今、東京住んでいます。東京、大学、経済、勉強しています。 では、答えをチェックしましょう。1、私は毎朝、彼と電車で大学に or 大学へ行きます。に OK、へも OK です。meaning same です。2番、なんでスーパーに or スーパーへ行きますか？自転車で行きます。そうですか。誰と行きますか？一人で行きます。ジョンさんはアメリカから来ました。今、東京に住んでいます。東京の大学で経済を勉強しています。皆さんどうでしたか？ Did anyone get perfect? 全部わかりましたか？ If you have any questions, feel free to write on the chat. 大丈夫ですか？簡単でしたか？では、ポイントをチェックします。トランスポーテーションのパーティクルは、車で行きます。自転車で行きます。バスで行きます。地下鉄で行きます。です。でも、一つエクセプションがあります。on foot は歩いてです。次は person 友達と行きます。家族と行きます。彼と行きます。person のパーティクルはとです。でも、エクセプションがあります。alone は一人で行きます。では、次は movement の origin です。大阪から来ました。アメリカから来ました。destination はに or へ both are OK です。フランスに行きます。ロンドンへ行きます。私は日本からタイに来ました。ここまで質問はありませんか？では、次のクイズです。はい。じゃあまた紙に答えを書いてください。1、今年8月、日本行きます。今年8月、日本行きます。2、毎日ここ来ます。毎日ここ来ます。3、5月12日、国帰ります。5月12日、国帰ります。4、今朝6時起きました。今朝6時起きました。5、今日午後2時、4時勉強します。今日午後2時、4時勉強します。6、来年3月、ロンドン行きます。それからそこ働きます。もう一度6、来年3月、ロンドン行きます。それからそこ働きます。7、テストは10時です。9時50分来てください。これはダブルパーティクルですよ。もう一度。7、テストは10時です。9時50分来てください。どうですか？ 全部わかりましたか？では、答えをチェックしましょう。1、今年の8月に日本に日本へ行きます。毎日、ここにここへ来ます。5月12日に国に国へ帰ります。今朝、6時に起きました。今日の午後、2時から4時まで勉強します。来年の3月にロンドンへ行きます。それからそこで働きます。テストは10時からです。9時50分までに来てください。どうでしたか？全部わかりましたか？質問はありませんか？ If you have any questions, feel free to ask me on the chat. では、ポイントをチェックします。9時12日5月2023年ナンバーがありますね。ナンバーがあります。9時に行きます。12日に行きます。5月に行きます。2023年に行きます。タイムに行きます。です。それから、誕生日、etc. スペシャルデイです。誕生日に行きます。クリスマスに行きます。スペシャルデーもにです。日曜日に行きます。曜日は、に is sometimes omitted です。日曜日に行きます。日曜日行きます。both are okay です。それから、朝行きます。昼行きます。晩行きます。今日、昨日、明日、今月、来月、先月。ナンバーがありません。にもありません。time with number or special day はにがあります。time without number はにがありませんよ。ここまで質問はありませんか？全部わかりましたか？では、練習しましょう。はい、見てください。じゃあ、example、東京です。いつ東京に行きますか？アンサーは July next year です。日本語で何ですか？ B さんの答えは何ですか？皆さん、チャットに答えを書いてください。example です。いつ東京に行きますか？ B さんのアンサーは何ですか？わかりましたか？ July next year は来年の7月です。7月、ナンバーですね。答えは来年の7月に行きますです。できましたか？では、1番をしましょう。バンクは日本語で何ですか？銀行です。いつ銀行に行きますか？答えは tomorrow afternoon です。よいしょ、小さいかな。tomorrow afternoon。tomorrow afternoon は日本語で何ですか？明日の午後です。では、B さんの答えは何ですか？いつ銀行に行きますか？答えは 明日の午後行きますです。明日の午後はナンバーがありませんね。明日の午後にじゃありません。では次です。じゃあ3番を見てください。3番。これはアートミュージアムです。アートミュージアムは日本語で何ですか？わかりますか？美術館です。いつ美術館に行きますか？ B さんの答えは何ですか？答えは3時に行きます。です。3時、3、ナンバーですね。3時、2、2がありますよ。では、じゃあ6番をしましょう。6番。ホスピタルは日本語で何ですか？病院です。いつ病院に行きますか？あ、クリスさん、こんにちは。来週の水曜日。はい。漢字、パーフェクトですね。はい。じゃあ6番はどうですか？いつ病院へ行きますか？ September 20th は日本語で何ですか？ irregular ですね。答えは9月20日に行きます。9月20日に行きます。9月20日はナンバーですね。9月20日に行きます。にありますよ。はい。コーラがあまり好きじゃありませんさん。コーラが好きじゃありません。そうですか。何が好きですか？こんにちは。はい。じゃあ、7番を見てください。これはレストランです。いつレストランに行きますか？答えはクリスマスですね。クリスマスはスペシャルデーですね。答えはクリスマスに行きます。クリスマスにがありますよ。ここまで質問はありませんか？わかりましたか？では、次のドリルです。まで vs までに。まではコンティニュエーションです。今晩9時まで勉強します。勉強コンティニューです。までにはデッドラインです。明日までにレポートを書かなければなりません。デッドラインです。では、1から7までですか？までにですか？皆さん、guess the answer お願いします。じゃあ、1、来週の火曜日、この本を返してください。月曜日に返します。いいですね。火曜日に返します。いいです。水曜日に返します。ダメです。火曜日はデッドラインです。デッドラインですから、までにですね。じゃあ2番はどうですか？来週の火曜日、この本を借りてもいいですか？日曜日読みたいです。月曜日も読みたいです。火曜日までずっと借りていますから、コンティニューです。までです。3、午後出かけますから、11時お風呂に入ってください。10時半にお風呂に入ります。いいです。10時45分にお風呂に入ります。これもいいです。11時はデッドラインですから答えはまでにです。4番、仕事が多かったですから11時働きました。 これはどちらですか？働きます、働きます、働きます。ずーっと11時まで働きました。continue です。5、パーティーは9時からですから、8時半、ケーキを持ってきてください。8時15分にケーキを持っていきます。いいです。8時20分にケーキを持っていきます。これもいいです。8時35分にケーキを持っていきます。ダメです。8時半はデッドラインですから、までにです。6、来週の木曜日、漢字を30覚えなければなりません。覚えなければなりません。わかりますか？ I must memorize 30漢字ですね。はい。水曜日に覚えます。いいです。火曜日に覚えます。いいです。木曜日はデッドラインですから、までにですね。7番。来週の木曜日、毎日テストがあります。月曜日、テストがあります。火曜日もテストがあります。水曜日もテストがあります。木曜日までずっとコンティニューです。どうでしたか？コーラがあまり好きじゃありませんさんは、まで。皆さん、いいですね。うんうん。簡単でしたか？では、次のクイズです。はい。じゃあ、紙に答えを書いてくださいね。はい。correct answer は we check the correct answer after question 7です。はい。1、学校、スイス人、友達、います。学校、スイス人、友達、います。2、うち、近く、銀行、あります。2、うち、近く、銀行、あります。3、箱、中、何、ありません。箱、中、何、ありません。4、渋谷に、渋谷は、it's the name of the area in Tokyo ですね。There are many buildings, shops, department stores, and many people ですね。There's very famous intersection in front of 渋谷 station ですね。はい、渋谷にデパート、レストランなどがあります。渋谷にデパート、レストランなどがあります。5、私、携帯、机、上、あります。5、私、携帯、机、上、あります。6、私、2017年、バンコク、住んでいます。私、2017年、バンコク、住んでいます。7、駅、近く、ホテル、泊まります。駅、近く、ホテル、泊まります。では、答えをチェックしましょう。学校にスイス人の友達がいます。うちの近くに銀行があります。うち はナウンですね。近くはロケーションナウンです。ナウンとナウンのコネクターはのですよ。3、箱の中に何もありません。箱、ナウンです。中もナウンです。ナウンとナウンのコネクターはのですね。箱の中。ありません。ネガティブです。nothing は何もです。では、4番です。渋谷にデパートやレストランなどがあります。デパートとレストランはダメですよ。デパート、レストラン、銀行、映画館、いろいろなものがありますね。etc. はやです。5、私の携帯は机の上にあります。6、私は2017年からバンコクに住んでいます。これは私のストーリーです。はい。住みますのパーティクルはに、プレイスに住むですよ。プレイスでじゃありません。できましたか？では7番。駅の近くのホテルに泊まります。駅、ナウンです。近く、ナウンです。ホテルもナウンです。のコネクションですね。駅の近くのホテル。泊まりますのパーティクルもプレイスにですよ。友達のうちに泊まります。で、じゃありません。さあ、皆さんどうでしたか？カサリンさん、ちょっと難しいです。大丈夫です。After you see the explanation, you can understand です。はい。質問はありませんか？では、ポイントをチェックします。はい。じゃまず一つ目は、プレイスにナウンがあります。例えば、机の上に本があります。机の上に本があります。本は new information、新しいインフォメーションです。じゃあ次のパターンは、トピックはプレイスにあります。私の家はバンコクにあります。バンコクは new information ですね。では、下の会話を作りましょう。B さんの部屋、何ありますか？テレビや冷蔵庫、ベッドなどあります。冷蔵庫、どこありますか？ドアの横あります。わかりますか？ B さんの部屋に何がありますか？テレビや冷蔵庫、ベッドなどがあります。何がのクエスチョンは何がのアンサーですよ。冷蔵庫はどこにありますか？冷蔵庫、トピックですね。ドアの横にあります。どこにのクエスチョンのアンサーはプレイスにです。わかりましたか？では、次のクイズです。はい、次は、はを書きません。では、皆さんの紙に答えを書いてください。私は2回読みます。1、誕生日、母、本、もらいました。誕生日、母、本、もらいました。 2、山田さんはフランス人、学生、日本語、教えます。2、山田さんはフランス人、学生、日本語、教えます。3、バルセロナ、アナ先生、1ヶ月、スペイン語、習いました。3、バルセロナ、アナ先生、1ヶ月、スペイン語、習いました。書きましたか？ 4、携帯、花、写真、撮って、友達、送りました。4、携帯、花、写真、撮って、友達、送りました。5。5はちょっとトリッキーですよ。A さん、お父さん、お金、借りましたか？ B さん、いいえ、銀行、10万円、借りました。カンバセーションですね。もう一度。お父さん、お金、借りましたか？いいえ、銀行、10万円、借りました。ちょっと難しかったですか？では、答えをチェックしましょう。1番です。誕生日に母に本をもらいました。誕生日はスペシャルデーですね。スペシャルデーにですね。2、山田さんはフランス人の学生に日本語を教えます。3、バルセロナでアナ先生に1ヶ月スペイン語を習いました。1ヶ月はデュレーションですね。デュレーションの後にパーティクルはいつもありませんよ。4、携帯で花の写真を撮って友達に送りました。携帯でのではトゥールのでですよ。ボールペンで書きます。スプーンで食べます。などですね。はい、じゃあ5番です。お父さんにお金を借りましたか？いいえ、銀行から10万円借りました。はい、このカンバセーションのトピックはお金のリソースです。銀行でプレイスじゃありません。お金のリソースです。で、人は人に借ります。でも、オーガニゼーション、カンパニー、銀行は、から借りますです。例えば、皆さんはセールスパーソンです。今月、セールスがナンバーワンでした。 会社は皆さんにプライズをあげます。皆さんは時計をもらいました。会社は人じゃありませんね。会社から時計をもらいました。ですね。それから10万円借りました。10万円、クワンティティですね。クワンティティ、カウンター、デュレーションの後にパーティクルはいつもありません。×です。はい。カサリンさん、わかりましたか？ 1 番は、カサリンさん、はを書きませんよ。はを書きません。リマークがありますね。はい。カサリンさん、3番もちょっと違うかな。バルセロナに、カサリンさん、3番、スペイン語を習いました。習う、アクションバーブですね。バルセロナ、アクションのプレイスですから、バルセロナでですよ。はい。では、ポイントをチェックしますね。はい。A さんは giver です。B さんは receiver です。A さんは B さんに花をあげました。A さんは B さんにペンを貸しました。A さんは B さんに英語を教えました。A さんは B さんに電話をかけました。A さんは B さんにメールを送りました。全部、receiver のパーティクルはにですね。オブジェクトはをです。人に、オブジェクトをです。では、次は B さん、サブジェクトです。B さんは receiver です。B さんは A さんに花をもらいました。B さんは A さんにペンを借りました。B さんは A さんに英語を習いました。B さんは A さんに電話をもらいました。B さんは A さんにメールをもらいました。ギバーはいつも A さんに、パーティクルはいつもにですね。オブジェクトのパーティクルはいつもをです。シンプルですね。ここまで質問がありますか？全部わかりましたか？では、練習しましょう。はい。では、絵を見てください。私は皆さんに質問しますよ。見えますか？よいしょ。よいしょ。はい。じゃあ、1番を見てください。1。左の女の人は佐藤さんです。右の男の人は山田さんです。はい。カサリンさんありがとうございます。では私は質問をします。答えのセンテンスをチャットに書いてくださいね。1、佐藤さんは誰にパンチを貸しましたか？佐藤さんは誰にパンチを貸しましたか？答えがわかりますか？チャットに書いてください。佐藤さんは誰にパンチを貸しましたか？誰にのクエスチョンの答えはパーソンにですから答えは山田さんに貸しましたです。山田さんに貸しました。カサリンさんセンテンスでお願いしますね。山田さんに貸しました。はい。じゃあ、クリスさん OK です。 はい。じゃあ2番です。問題です。高橋さんは誰に電話をかけましたか？高橋さんは誰に電話をかけましたか？はい、答えを書いてください。高橋さんは誰に電話をかけましたか？では答えをチェックしますね。答えは木村さんにかけました。かけましたです。かけました。はい。じゃあ3番です。サントスさんはラン先生に何を習いましたか？サントスさんはラン先生に何を習いましたか？うん。あ、クリスさんの木村さんに、木村さんね、木村さん。カセリンさん、木村さんに電話をかけました。OK。はい。3番。サントスさんは誰に、すみません。サントスさんはラン先生に何を習いましたか？何を習いましたか？ Let me check the chat. はい。ニーハオは何ですか？ニーハオ。日本語ですか？韓国語ですか？英語ですか？中国語ですね。答えは中国語を習いました。中国語を習いましたです。はい。では、じゃあ、4番。鈴木さんは誰に荷物を送りましたか？鈴木さんは誰に荷物を送りましたか？わかりましたか？答えは、お父さんに送りました。お父さんに送りました。かさにさん、お父さんを送りました。お父さんをじゃありません。荷物を送りました。お父さんに荷物を送りました。ですよ。receiver に、ね。はい。お父さんを送りましたは he sent his father です。はい。じゃあ5番です。佐藤さんは田中さんに何をもらいましたか？佐藤さんは田中さんに何をもらいましたか？この大きいボトルは何ですか？ワインじゃありませんね。佐藤さんは田中さんに何をもらいましたか？お酒をもらいました。OK です。お酒をもらいました。パーフェクトです。ラスト6番です。お母さんはケン君に何をあげましたか？お母さんはケン君に何をあげましたか？いいですね。私も欲しいですね。これ何ですか？答えは、お金をあげました。お金をあげましたです。はい。では、次のクイズをしますよ。いいですか？また、紙にパーティクルを書いてくださいね。はい。カサリンさん、お金をあげました。OK です。はい。次のクイズです。ちょっと難しくなりますよ。 はい。はを書きません。はを書きません。1、お腹空きましたからレストラン入ります。1、お腹空きましたからレストラン入ります。2、東京大学出てから京都働きました。2、東京大学出てから京都働きました。3、カバン、本入れます。カバン、本入れます。4、カバン、本出して机上置きます。カバン、本出して机上置きます。4つありますね。全部わかりますか？では5です。漢字読み方わかりませんから先生聞きます。漢字読み方わかりませんから先生聞きます。6、A 駅、電車、乗ります。A 駅、電車、乗ります。7、B 駅、電車、降りて、バス、乗り換えます。B 駅、電車、降りて、バス、乗り換えます。どうですか？難しかったですか？では、答えをチェックします。1、お腹が空きましたから、レストランに入ります。東京の大学を出てから、京都で働きました。3、カバンに本を入れます。4、カバンから本を出して机の上に置きます。5、漢字の読み方がわかりませんから先生に聞きます。はい、これはちょっと難しかったですか？読み方、読みます。ます系、読み方、食べます。食べ方、how to eat です。作ります。作り方、how to cook ですね。はい。読み方は noun です。漢字も noun ですから、漢字の読み方のコネクターですね。先生に聞きます。この聞きますは listen, hear じゃありませんね。ask です。6番、A 駅でですね。7番、B 駅で電車を降りてバスに乗り換えます。降りては降りる、降りますですね。降りるはアクションバーブです。ですから B 駅でですよ。どうですか？難しかったですか？ 何か質問はありませんか？ If you have any questions, write on the chat. 大丈夫ですか？クリスさんのが2は1番ですね。OK ですね。では、問題5のポイントをチェックします。問題5のポイントは、ターゲットの2とスターティングポイントのおです。レストランに入ります。大学に入ります。電車に乗ります。ロンドンに到着します。到着しますは arrive です。バスに乗り換えます。カバンに入れます。ノートに書きます。机の上に置きます。ターゲットのパーティクル2です。次は、レストランを出ます。大学を出ます。電車を降ります。ロンドンを出発します。出発は depart です。スターティングポイントのパーティクルはおです。このおはオブジェクトのおじゃありませんよ。どうですか？ここまで何か質問はありますか？全部わかりましたか？では、ラストのクイズです。一番難しいかもしれません。皆さんありがとうございます。はい、わかりました。はい、じゃあ、ラストクエスチョンです。問題6。紙にパーティクルを書いてください。1、昨日、雨、降っています。すみません。1、もう一度。昨日、雨、降っています。2、トイレ、ドア、開いています。トイレ、ドア、開いています。3、天気、いいですから。公園、散歩します。3、天気、いいですから。公園、散歩します。4、あの橋、渡ると、銀行、あります。4、あの橋、渡ると、銀行、あります。5、このプロジェクト、終わったら、1ヶ月、日本、旅行したいです。このプロジェクト、終わったら、1ヶ月、日本、旅行したいです。プロジェクトは英語のプロジェクトですよ。3つ書きましたか？はい。6と7はちょっと難しいですよ。6、ビール飲みますが、ワイン飲みません。6、ビール飲みますが、ワイン飲みません。7、ダブルパーティクルです。友達飲みに行きますが、父行きません。友達飲みに行きますが、父行きません。 7はとても難しいです。では、答えをチェックします。1、昨日から雨が降っています。昨日雨スタートずーっと降っていますね。コンティニューです。トイレのドアが開いています。3、天気がいいですから公園を散歩します。これは公園でじゃありません。公園をですよ。わかりましたか？あの橋を渡ると銀行があります。5、このプロジェクトが終わったら1ヶ月日本を旅行したいです。1ヶ月はデュレーションですね。デュレーションの後ろにパーティクルはいつもありませんよ。日本で旅行したいです。じゃありません。日本を旅行したいです。おですよ。6、ビールは飲みますが、ワインは飲みません。皆さんは私の先週のライブストリームレッスンを見ましたか？私はマンゴーは好きですが、ドリアンは好きじゃありません。コントラストのはですね。ビール飲みます。ワイン飲みません。コントラストのはです。7番、友達とは飲みに行きますが、父とは行きません。これもコントラストのはですよ。友達と飲みに行きます。父と飲みに行きません。コントラストです。友達とは、父とはです。わかりましたか？ちょっと難しかったですね。はい。クリスさん、1番、昨日は雨が降っています。降っていますはパストテンスじゃありませんね。昨日は雨が降りましたですね。今も降っています。昨日から雨が降っていますですね。はい。質問はありませんか？では、問題6のポイントをチェックします。はい。まず、サブジェクトが、プラス、intransitive verb。雨が降ります。お釣りが出ます。ドアが閉まります。道が混んでいます。電気が消えます。バスが来ます。会議が終わります。私のアクションじゃありません。私は何もしていません。サブジェクトがです。お腹が空きましたもそうですね。次はコース、トランジットポイントのパーティクルをです。このをはオブジェクトのをじゃありませんよ。道を歩きます。うちの近くを通ります。10時を過ぎます。オブジェクトのをは私はコーヒーを飲みます。コーヒーに私はアクションします。道を歩きます。パスだけです。道に何もしませんからオブジェクトじゃありません。パスだけです。最後にダブルパーティクル。ちょっと難しいですね。えは、には、とは、では、からは。えも、にも、とも、でも、からも、などがありますよ。じゃあ、エグザンプルです。東京へは行きますが、大阪へは行きません。コントラストですね。京都にも行きません。大阪へは行きません。京都へも行きません。also です。これはちょっとアドバンスのグラマーです。はい。では、今日の勉強はこれで終わります。はい。皆さんお疲れ様でした。たくさん勉強してちょっと疲れましたか？よく頑張りました。はい。はい。では、もっと日本語を勉強したい人は、italki のウェブサイトで先生を見つけてくださいね。If you want to study Japanese more, visit the italki website and find the best teacher for you. Many nice teachers are waiting for you. And now you can get a promotion for your first booking. So please visit the website. では、 今日はありがとうございました。さようなら。
Ganarán recompensas ayudando a otros usuarios. Así es como conectamos personas de forma colaborativa y gratuita en nuestra aplicación. Únete a nuestra comunidad, haz nuevos amigos y mejora en todos los idiomas que quieras. Descarga Lingvi y practiquemos juntos.
Este es Peter. Está aprendiendo chino. Ha intentado estudiar por su cuenta con libros, tarjetas de vocabulario y aplicaciones móviles, pero sigue teniendo problemas para hablar. Esta es María. Le encanta aprender inglés, pero no tiene oportunidades para ponerlo en práctica. Con italki, Peter y María pueden recibir clases personales online para hablar con fluidez en otro idioma. Tú también puedes aprender un idioma en italki. Empieza hoy en 3 simples pasos. Primero, elige un idioma: inglés, alemán, chino, francés, japonés. Italki tiene profesores para cualquier idioma. Segundo, escoge un profesor. Con Italki puedes escoger entre miles de profesores con experiencia de todo el mundo. Tercero, elige el horario y conversaciones reales con hablantes nativos. Cada día miles de personas aprenden con profesores internacionales a través de Italki. Encuentra un profesor hoy y domina el idioma de tu elección.
Hi everyone, it's Vicente and I teach Spanish on italki.com. And today we will be talking about 3 grammar rules to follow when you start learning Spanish. The first one is that, as you have already heard, Spanish verbs are always conjugated. That means that they have to match with the subject of the sentence. For example, there are different pronouns in Spanish. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, and ellos, ellas, y ustedes. All these pronouns have their own conjugations, and it's very common for beginners to mix them up. So remember this. When you start to conjugate the verbs, they have to match. The second rule is very important as well. The Spanish nouns and adjectives has to be in the same level. Let me explain you this. If you have a noun that is feminine and plural, for example, las mujeres, the adjective that you have to use right after the noun has to be feminine and plural as well. For example, las mujeres españolas. It is the same with the articles las, female and plural. We use this article because, as I say, it's female and plural. The third rule I already mentioned before, and be careful, English speakers, because the adjectives in Spanish go after the noun, not before like in English. This is very common for students that learn Spanish and already speak or know English. When I say it, las mujeres españolas, españolas is the adjective, and I put it after las mujeres. In English, it would be the Spanish woman, but not in Spanish. Okay, there are some occasions where the adjectives go before the nouns. That is true, but normally this use comes out at intermediate level or advanced level, so do not worry when you are a beginner. Thanks for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the italki YouTube channel over here. Take a lesson with me on italki.com by clicking on my teacher profile link in the description. Hasta luego! Hi everyone, it's Vicente and I teach Spanish on italki.com. And today I will be talking about 7 Spanish words that are similar to their English counterpart. These words are also known as cognates. What a cognate is? A cognate is a word that has the same linguistic derivation that another word, and it looks similar, and when you pronounce it, it sounds almost the same. And here I will give you 7 cognates so you can use them in Spanish as well. The first one is alcohol in Spanish. Guess you know what it means because it sounds pretty similar than in English, doesn't it? Number 2 is conclusión. This one has a different pronunciation in Spanish, but you will understand definitely when you start learning Spanish. Number 3, hobby. This one is completely similar. We basically took this word from English. Number 4, individual. Of course, it's the same word, just different pronunciation. The next one, number 5, is piercing. Yes, we use this word with the same pronunciation and meaning. Next one, number 6, is informal. I like to use this one in my lessons to explain ways to greet and say goodbye because it's similar in English and is a word that the students understand very quickly. And the last are some words related to sports. If you're learning Spanish and you like sports, you're lucky because most of the words are cognates like football, tennis, baseball, volleyball, hockey, water polo, golf, surf, and so on. As you can see, almost all sports are cognates. So, talking about your hobbies should not be difficult. As you can see, there are many, and I would like to remember you that there are hundreds of cognates, and if you check them, you can be ready to your first Spanish lesson. Thanks for watching the video. Don't forget to subscribe to the italki YouTube channel for more tips on learning Spanish. Take a lesson with me on italki.com by clicking on my teacher profile link in the description. Hasta luego!
Hi everyone, it's Caroline here and I teach English on italki. Today I am going to be talking about business idioms or idioms you might hear in your office or in your workplace. A student asked me a really good question the other day. He asked me whether, because I'm a native English speaker, do I know every single idiom? And the answer is no. Idioms are phrases or expressions that come from a particular place or a particular age group. So idioms are different in the UK to idioms in the United States. I have chosen 5 business idioms to talk to you about today, and you may hear them in an office in the UK or in the States. So hopefully they will be super useful for you. Idiom number 1 is the big picture. Imagine you go into a meeting and your boss says to you, you've lost sight of the big picture. What does that mean? That means that you are thinking too much about the small details of the project and you are so interested in those little details that you don't remember what it is you're trying to achieve. So always keep sight of the big picture. The second idiom is to go the extra mile. Now imagine you're in an interview and the interviewer says to you that they are looking for someone who always goes the extra mile. What does that mean? Does it mean they want you to run around the office every day? No, it means they want you to do more than just what is in the job description. They want you to go that little bit further and to take on extra responsibilities. That is going the extra mile. The third idiom is a win-win situation. A win-win situation means everybody gains something. A really good example of this is these videos that I'm making for italki. italki gains some content for their website, some lessons for their learners, And I have a platform where students can see me and book lessons with me. It's a win-win. Italki wins and Caroline wins. The fourth idiom is word of mouth. So an example of this is, think about how you found out about italki. Did you find italki by searching on Google, or did you find italki because one of your friends recommended it to you? Recommendations from friends are word of mouth. It can be positive or it can be negative. If your company gets bad word of mouth, it is going to be a very difficult time for your company because people really listen to the opinions of their friends. So make sure whatever you do, you have good word of mouth about it. The fifth and final business idiom is to touch base. My manager used to say this to me a lot. To touch base means to have a very quick and short meeting about a project or something that you are working on. It might only be 5 minutes of your time, but in that time, you will check that your understanding of the project is the same as your manager's understanding of the project. So I have a challenge for you. In your next lesson, I want you to ask your teacher if you can touch base about what you have learned in your lessons so far. This could be 5 minutes at the end of the lesson where you review all of the different subjects that you have been studying. You're touching base about the things you have covered so far. Thank you so much for watching this video. Don't forget to subscribe to italki by clicking somewhere. And you can take a lesson with me by clicking on my teacher profile in the description box. Have a good day, everyone. Bye.
Welcome back to the Stop Being Boring When Speaking English video series. When speaking to native English speakers, it's useful to use a variety of vocabulary to make your conversation sound more interesting and flow. Why not spice up your language a little bit and impress others with your speaking abilities? In this next video, we will take a look at some American and British slang.
Number 1, American. John Hancock.
John Hancock.
Mm-hmm.
So that's a person,
It's a name of a person, yes.
and it's American slang.
Mm-hmm. What do you think it means?
I just got John Hancock. Does it mean like wasted?
Certainly not.
Give me an example.
Okay, so can I please have your John Hancock at the bottom of this paper? Come on, you gotta get it now.
Is it your signature?
Yes, you got it! That was easy.
Okay, awesome. Number 1, British. Peak. What does peak mean?
Like, taking a peek.
Do that.
Sorry, that's not taking a peek.
That's not slang.
This is taking a peek.
But that's just like taking a peek. That's not slang.
Oh,
Like in a slang
peak.
context.
Like the peak of a mountain? That's not slang. That's actually
Yeah, that is the peak of a mountain.
I don't know. Tell me.
Okay, let me give you an example. So say you go out one night and you lose your purse, your keys.
Is it like the most horrible situation you can be in?
Yeah, exactly. You'd be like, that's so peak. You'd be like, oh, yeah. How was your night? It was so peak.
I just got fired. That's so peak.
Exactly. Cool. So it's like the peak of badness, I guess.
Oh, I got it.
Yeah.
Okay.
So the peak.
2, American. Jacked.
Jacked. Does that mean like hench?
What does hench mean?
Like say you go to the gym.
Don't answer back with a slang word.
So the British equivalent of jacked would be hench, I think. So if someone's like really ripped.
Yes, exactly.
Okay.
So hench.
Go to the gym, work out a
They're
lot.
like, whoa, look at him, he's so jacked.
We would say hench. Number 2, British. Peng. Peng.
Peng.
Peng. P-E-N-G. Peng.
Like someone being panged on the head with something? Or
Peng.
just thinking of bang and pang. It's similar, I don't know.
I guess it's a little similar. No.
Give me an example.
Okay, so for example, say you're eating a cake, it's delicious, you can say, oh, this is peng.
Does it just mean delicious?
You could use it in other contexts
Does
as
it
well.
mean like it hits the spot? You know?
Yeah, but I could also say that your eyes are peng, or a person is peng.
Just mean like extraordinarily awesome?
Basically, if you're talking about a person, you might even say painting.
Painting.
Like he's a painting.
Okay.
This is mostly
And
London.
then he's like a 10.
Yeah, exactly.
So like the top of top.
Yeah, basically.
Number 3, American. I blew it.
I blew it.
I blew it.
Good morning, everybody. Hola, buenos dias, todos. And I should probably say hello in many other languages today, because I know we have had viewers from all over the world today. So, guten Morgen, ohayo gozaimasu, salut. Hope everybody's doing well today. My name is Claire, Teacher Claire, UK, but you can call me Claire. I'm from London. I'm an italki teacher. I've been teaching on italki for 6 months. Wonderful. What a lovely community we have on italki. So, who do we have in the studio with us live today? Who do we have? I know we have Jeffrey. Good morning, Jeffrey. How are you, Jeffrey? If people could tell us where they're from, which country perhaps, which city perhaps, where they're from. Marina is back. Hello, Marina again. And Grazia. Hi again, everybody. It's so lovely to see some regulars here. It makes me feel very nice to have some regulars back. So today we are going to be talking about doing presentations and public speaking. We are going to do the usual format, a little bit of me explaining things, a little bit of modelling, a little bit of gap fill, and looking at a little bit of vocabulary. But today it's mostly about skills for public speaking and presentations. So I've been doing presentations and public speaking for many, many years. I have spoken in very small events, 3 or 4 people, and I have spoken in very large events of over thousands, many thousands of people. And I can tell you for a start, it is all very nerve-wracking. It makes me feel nervous. So let's start with our slides. Here we go. I've got a PowerPoint presentation for you. Well, it's Google Slides, actually, if anybody has used Google Slides before. So, Angel's back. Hello, Angel, Carol, Lucia, Alex from China, people from Spain. Wonderful. It's so great to have people from all over the world. If you're watching and you can't comment yet, you might have to turn on the live chat function on YouTube. And if you are watching on the italki website, think you may have to log in with your italki login. I'm not sure about that one. I should have probably asked. Okay, so this lesson is going to be sort of intermediate to advanced. I know most of the regular viewers that I have today, including Monica who's here and Sergio who's here, are I would have thought advanced, although I obviously haven't done a placement test with you. I think you can keep up with what I'm saying. But if you ever need me to repeat anything, just ask me to repeat. It's no problem. Please say that again. Please slow down. Could you repeat that? Anything like that will be fine. Okay. So here we go. Presentations and public speaking. Now, first things first. This is not a vocabulary lesson. Okay, this is not a vocabulary lesson. I will teach you some bits of, we will look at some bits of vocabulary, but it's not a vocabulary lesson per se. It is actually a less vocabulary lesson. Anybody that has attended any of my previous live italki lessons will know that I'm very keen on helping you use the language that you know already, okay? Because when we're doing presentations and public speaking, What happens? What happens when we do presentations and public speaking? Get very nervous, don't we? That is normal, okay? I'll come back to that in a second. So let's see who else has done any presentations and public speaking before. Question 1, type in the boxes, please. The more interaction, the better. There is no such thing as a silly comment or a silly question. There is no such thing. All questions and comments are perfect. What kind of presentations or public speaking have you done? What have you done? Was it a big event? Was it a small event? Was it public? Was it in an office? Was it at a conference? We have a commenter, a viewer called Hello Claire. Interesting. Hello Claire. Hello Claire. Hello Claire says hello Claire. What kind of presentations or public speaking have you done already so far? What have people done? Or if you haven't done one, or even if you have done one before, what type or which types of presentations and public speaking do you know? Which ones are you familiar with? What are the names of some sort of public speaking? Excellent. There's a couple coming in already. Alex from China. Yes, a speech at a wedding. Oh, could you imagine? Can you imagine doing a speech at a wedding? Have you done that, Alex? Have you spoken at a wedding? And Carol has said she has given a formal presentation for an interview. Oh, goodness. And in a conference for the presentation of my book. Wow. What was your book, Carol? How interesting. I have done something similar. I've done a presentation for my book too. What was your book about and how did it go? Angel has said he's, for example, at college, the final year to the last year to the final test. Yes, at university, at college, we often have to do public presentations. And Carol, she said for her interview, in my last live italki lesson, Carol, we spoke about tips for interviews as well. And so to do a presentation at an interview must have been nerve-wracking, we say. Nerve-wracking. Can I write that somewhere for you? Let me write it in the box. Nerve-wracking. Oh, nerve-wracking. Yeah, I've commented in the comments box. And Alex says, yes, Alex has done a speech at a wedding already, and the jokes were terrible. Yes, that is quite common. Wedding jokes are often terrible. I'm sure everybody laughed and loved your speech anyway. That's the thing. When people are listening to you doing a speech, everybody knows that it's nerve-wracking. Okay, here we are. Here's a couple of different types of speeches. I'm just going to read them for you, okay? So we could do public speeches. We could do announcements, campaign speeches. Perhaps you're campaigning for something and you need to speak in public about, I don't know, the closure of your department or something. Business speeches, presentations, reporting, pitches, proposals. These are all types of speeches. And at university, we have academic speeches, like somebody's already said. They had to do, they had to present for college. You have to present your findings sometimes. You have to present the evidence that you have learned about. Perhaps you have to speak at a union meeting. Again, maybe you're speaking about, I don't know, wages or staff cuts or something. And obviously, many, many more. And look at this question. What do you think? How many people feel nervous when speaking in public? I'm going to let you have a think about that. Let's put in a percentage into the box. What percentage of people do you think feel nervous when speaking in public? Carol has said about her presentation and book launch, it was a thriller and it was a nice presentation with a public of old people, but it was difficult at the end. Oh, that's a shame. It was difficult. It was difficult, but at the end, they were very interested in it. Yeah, that's quite often the case, actually. By the end of your presentation, everybody relaxes and they enjoy what you're saying anyway. Alex has guessed 99% of people feel nervous. 99.9%. Yes. And some people don't feel nervous when they're speaking. I don't know how. I always feel nervous. I'm even nervous now doing this. So this is the answer. Why is it not coming up? I might have to do it here. There we are. 75% of people apparently in a survey, an international survey, a worldwide survey, 75% of people feel nervous. It's a very high number, actually not quite 99.9%, but I get your point, Alex. Most people feel nervous when they're doing anything where they have to stand up and give a public speech. So what I'm going to do today is give you some tips on how to combat your nerves. Alex, the other 24.9% are lying, I bet. Yeah, yes, probably over. Yeah, confident. Okay, so the first thing is you are not alone, okay? Don't worry. A little quote from a wonderful civil rights activist from the United States, Maya Angelou. You might have heard of her, a wonderful woman. She has said, and if you want to, you can repeat this after me out loud, wherever you are, in the kitchen, in the office, in the bedroom, maybe you're on a bus going to work, I don't know. I've learned that people will forget what you said. People will forget what you did. But people will never forget how you made them feel. They will forget what you said, they will forget what you did, but they will never forget how you made them feel. And this is a very good tip when you're giving presentations and public speaking, is to try to make yourself feel less nervous and your audience comfortable. And I think Carol can vouch for that. Carol can confirm this quote. A lot of people are nervous, she says, but at the end, by the end of it, you relax, okay, and you feel more comfortable by the end. So what can we do? What can we do? I'm just going to give you all of these top tips just quickly. I'm going to go through them one by one, okay? So first of all, be prepared. Be prepared for your presentation, okay? No one is born an expert speaker. Even if you think they are experts, you might think politicians. Listen to that wonderful politician standing up and giving an amazing speech. I can guarantee you that they have practiced it over and over and over again. Somebody might have even written their speech for them, okay? So they have prepared and they have practiced. Second one, stand up. Always stand up. It's much better for your diaphragm and for your delivery if you are standing up. Number three, use vocabulary that you know already, unless you have quite a few months to prepare, and then you can learn new vocabulary. Speak up, but not fast, about 100 words a minute. And oh, by the way, you can take a photo of any of my slides if you want to keep these as tips for yourself afterwards, or you can record it. I don't mind. Okay. Final one, practice, practice, practice. You can either practice with a friend or with a teacher, such as myself. On italki, I do lots of presentation training with people in my lessons on italki. Centro says practice makes perfect. Exactly. Carol, feelings are a very strong part of our life. Yes, exactly. And Angel, what a lovely quote, isn't it? Very good quote. It really is true. Alex, yes, I find that it's hard to slow down and not speak too fast. Yeah, everybody speaks fast when they're nervous. So I have to try to prepare for about 100 words per minute. Makes it sound sophisticated when you speak a bit slower as well. Plus, you won't make so many mistakes. Okay, before I go back to those tips, I just want to look at a couple of words here. Even though I said it's not a vocabulary lesson, these are a couple of words that you might use. And I just want to point out the difference between these words when we use them as verbs and when we use them as nouns, okay? So on the left, we have the verbs, and on the right, we have the nouns. The verb to rise. When it's a noun, it's arise. Again, you can repeat these out loud with me if you want to. The verb to grow. I didn't put to there. To grow is also a noun. It can also be a noun. A growth. Did I miss out increase? I think I did. To increase. The verb to increase is also, it can also be a noun. An increase. An increase. Improve, to improve, can be an improvement. Can be an improvement. The verb to peak. If it's a noun, it's a peak. A peak. And this can also be an adjective. So that's a tricky word, isn't it? It can be a verb, a noun, or an adjective. We have lots of words that do that in English. And the final one, the verb to climb, can also be a climb if it's a noun. So, can anybody make sentences with two of these? Okay, let's see if anybody can make some sentences with these. You can either use a verb, and you can use it as a noun, or if you like, you can also use peak, for example, as an adjective. Let's get some example sentences going in the box. Type them in the box. Fallen Down has asked, could you give me an example with to peak? Very good question. Can we pop that on the slides, Studio? If Studio can do that, pop it up so everybody can see this one. Fallen Down has said, could you give me an example with to peak? Sure if they can do that from the italki page. I've put it on the YouTube page as well. Could you give me an example with to peak? Okay, I'm not seeing any yet. Maybe I have to refresh my page. Here we are. Oh, we've got a couple. Rafaela. Traveling with public transports could be very hard in peak times. Great, Rafaela. Wonderful. And have you used it as an adjective, a verb, or a noun? Do you know? Carol has said, I peaked my goals. Interesting use of the word. I like that. Never heard it used like that before, but good. I like that. Can anybody else do some example sentences? Yes. Could you give me an example with to peak? Yes, Rafaela, you used it as an adjective. Wonderful. Traveling on public transport could be very hard in peak times as an adjective. Perfect. Okay, let me give you a couple as well. I'm going to do a gap fill using those words. And I want you to tell me if it's, what the word is and whether it's a verb, a noun, or an adjective. Okay. Here's all 5 sentences. You can choose one of them and put the word in. Or you could do all 5. Up to you. There has been a significant blank in turnover. What could that be? There has been a significant blank in turnover. Number 2, taxes are not going to blank this year. Taxes are not going to blank this year. Number 3, March is a blank period for us. March is a blank period for us. I just realized you might need the slides, the vocabulary, mightn't you? Here we are, if people can remember. Rise, increase, grow, improve, peak, climb. I wonder if I can put those in the box so that you can see them. I'll do that for you, okay? Hang on a second. Well, Alex has already got number 1, increase. There has been a significant increase in turnover. You could, yes, you could say that, actually. You could use another one as well, Alex, actually. Is there another one that you can think of? I'm just trying to put these in the comments for you. Hang on a second. This is a bit trickier than it looks. Not deleting that. Yeah. And this one. Okay, I've put them in the box on the YouTube channel. I'll put them on the. Okay. So what else have we got here? Who else? Increase. Number 3, peak. March is a peak period for us. That's what Alex says. Angel says number 4 is increase. We need to increase our sales figures. And Alex says number 5 is rise. What do other people think? Can we? Okay. Good. Okay, well, I'll tell you what I had, shall I? I'll tell you what I had. Maybe again, you can repeat after me. Number 1, there has been a significant improvement in turnover. That's the noun version, okay? There has been a significant improvement in turnover. And you could have put increase, absolutely. Number 2, taxes are not going to rise this year. To rise, the verb. Number 3, March is a peak period for us. A peak period for us. And I've used it as an adjective there, like somebody else did as well. Somebody else has used it as a peak. Number 4, I used the word improve, okay? I used it as a verb. We need to improve our sales figures. We need to improve our sales figures. And number 5, finally, I think Angel got the same as me. Growth. We have seen a growth of 200%. Thank you, Angel. Yes, we have seen a growth of 200%. You also, Angel, you also said that number 3 was peak. It is peak, P-E-A-K, as an adjective. Number 3 is. Very good, everybody. Okay, so there's a couple of things. I said this lesson isn't a vocabulary lesson, and I just wanted to point out that these words can be both verbs and nouns and adjectives. Okay, so let's go back to the 5 points that I made at the beginning, the 5 top tips. Now, on that slide, I was telling you what I'm going to say in the rest of the presentation. Okay, so I call them the 3 Ps. People do different acronyms and different things to help you remember. I call them the 3 Ps. The first thing you need to do is plan. You need to plan everything in advance. This will help you feel, less nervous if you know what you're going to say, if you know what some of the problems are going to be. Then you should do the format, if you can, PEE. I'm going to explain that a bit in a minute. Just remember PEE, okay? And number 3, predict. I want you to predict what problems you're going to have. Okay, so number 1, plan the presentation logically. You can try this exercise with a teacher or a friend. When you give your presentation, when you practice this with a friend, you can ask them to take notes, whether your presentation made any sense, was it logical, was it the right speed, and so on. Ask them to help you. Ask for feedback. What you're going to say. This is a very standard structure for presentations, and actually also for essays at university. So if you're at university or at college or studying, you can use this very simple structure. Feel free to take a photo with your cameras if you want to. So in the introduction, you are going to say what you are going to say. In the introduction, you are going to say what you are going to say. Now, I did that in this presentation when I showed you those 5 top tips. That was my outline for the rest of my speech. I'm also going to show you that at the end. So the introduction was my sort of 5 top tips in a way. And I told you what I was going to say. Then in the middle, you're going to say it, basically, which is what I'm doing now. I'm now going through them 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. So I'm saying what I said in my introduction. Then in the conclusion, you're going to say what you said. You're going to tell your audience again what they heard in the middle part. And at the end of this presentation today, I'm going to show you my 5 top tips again. That's the way that I do it. Not always, but I often do it like that. Say what you're going to say it, and then say what you said. There is no problem with repeating yourself when you're doing a presentation. In fact, it's a good idea to repeat yourself, because as Maya Angelou said, they won't always remember what you said, okay? But you have a better chance of them remembering what you said if you say it 3 times. Let's see how much you remember of my speech today. Hopefully, you're going to remember more because I've done it in this structure. Okay. The first one of the P's. P-E-E. Oh, the second one, sorry. P-E-E. So the first one was to plan it. The second one is the P-E-E. One tip is to write an opening sentence for each point. What is the main idea? That is your main point. Write down an opening sentence. What is the main idea? Then give an example of your main idea. And then if you want to, or if you can, give some explanation or evidence, if appropriate, depending on which one. Evidence or explanation of your main point. And then do that probably 3 times. When you're doing a public presentation or a speech, you don't really want to do more than 3 or 4 points if you have to. Okay, so PEE, point, example, explanation. I'll just do this 3 times. Okay, final thing on this. Why do you think I say to only do 3 points? What do people think? Can people write in the comments? Why only make 3 main points? Anybody got any ideas why? Okay, well, I'll tell you. Because, as Carol said in her comment earlier, by the time you get to the end of your presentation, you will feel much more relaxed, and you will ask the audience if they have any questions. Okay, so there's a couple of reasons why I only make 3 points. One is because you want some things for your audience to be able to ask you, and you will feel much more relaxed by the time you get to the Q&A. So you don't need everything in the main presentation. And two, because like Maya Angelou said, people won't remember everything that you said anyway. So just make 3 main points. Okay, the next one, predict. I think I can do this one a bit quicker. You need to think in advance to prepare yourself so you're not so nervous for your speech. You need to predict these 3 things. Can anybody give me any examples of the sorts of things you need to predict? Angel says it's difficult to keep more than 3 points in our mind. Absolutely. Yeah, Carol said the same. Yeah, because it's difficult to remember more. Yes, I mean, you can write things on a piece of paper, and I recommend writing things on a piece of paper, you know, like a post-it note or cue cards or bits of card. What sort of things do you need to predict? What kind of questions might people ask you at the end of your presentation? So you've made your 3 points, but you know 10 points about this topic. Jot down on a piece of paper the sorts of things they might ask you and prepare an answer to those questions in advance. Prepare an answer in advance to the questions that they might ask you. Let me just have a sip of my tea. Very English cup of tea in the morning. So prepare the questions, prepare the answers, and then any other potential problems. What potential problems can you think of? Can anybody think of any potential problems that you might have when you're doing a public speech? Okay, well, a couple of things that I've experienced in the past have been technical problems. If I'm doing a presentation like this one, today I've had a couple of technical problems already, but I was prepared for them. What about whether you have any liquid? If you get a bit thirsty, when people are nervous, you get thirsty, make sure you have a bottle of water. Usually the person organizing the event will provide you with a jug of water or a bottle of water, but take one with you just in case. What about the temperature? What if it's hot? What if it's cold? Always take a jacket just in case. It might be too cold in the room. Even if it's very hot outside, sometimes you know what it's like. Get to an office and they've got the air conditioning on 100% and it's freezing inside. Now, it's not normally a problem to be a little bit cold when you're doing a presentation, but you don't want to be freezing. So always make sure to take a jacket or a cardigan, we say in England, a cardigan, and maybe take cables with you. If you need to plug in your laptop into any kind of audio functions, take the cable that you need, especially if it's a Mac, actually, because lots of conference venues, for some reason, don't have the correct cables, and you do not want to be stuck with no presentation slides. Angel, that's very funny. Can we put Angel's comment on the screen? Yes, I like that one. To go to the toilet before you go on stage. Yes, that is brilliant, Angel. I have heard, I have heard that if you need the toilet, it can sometimes make you present quite well. I personally wouldn't try it. I'd be too busy thinking about needing to go to the toilet. Angel's also said, questions trying to contradict what you said. Yes, people in the audience that want to make you look bad, that want to challenge you, that have a completely different opinion to you. Excellent. That is a really excellent thing to think about. Questions on the opposite side of what you are going to say. Prepare the answers. Carol, the microphone doesn't work. Yeah, that happens all the time. All the time. Batteries run out. The cable isn't long enough. If it's a megaphone, if you've ever had to do a speech through a big megaphone, again, sometimes the batteries don't work. So you have to think about how you're going to speak in that event. Okay, so that's actually, I think, brings me on to my next slide. Okay, actually, the next slide is just quickly summing up those three things. Again, if you want to take a photo of this, you can. The three P's: plan, P, and predict. Okay, so what Carol was just saying, in terms of you don't know if the microphone will work, is related to this point. Or actually, I said it before, I'm going to say it again, especially to you women, because women often don't do this. Well, I don't know why. Confidence, I suppose. Stand up. Stand up. Even if everybody else is in the meeting, especially if it's a big meeting, if they're sitting down at a boardroom table, for example, find a way that you can stand up. They will actually be very impressed with you if you stand up. Don't feel embarrassed to ask the organizer where you can stand, if I can stand. I don't think I've ever had a situation where everybody was sitting down and I didn't stand up. You can always find a way to stand up. It helps you project better. It helps you sound more confident. You can use your arms. You can walk around a little bit, not too much in case they're videoing, but do stand up. One tip that I always like to give is to imagine the room that you are going to be speaking in. Visualize it. Close your eyes and visualize. Is it a small room? Is it a large room? Is it going to be 5 people? Is it going to be 5,000 people? And then imagine what it's going to be like speaking to them. Think about if you're going to have to project your voice right across the other side of the room, or if you're going to have to speak a little bit quieter, because you don't want to blast everyone's ears if you're in a small room. This is obviously related also to the way you speak, which I will come on to in a second as well. Any questions so far? Any questions, anybody? Are we all still in the room? Yes, everybody's still here. Great. Next one. I'm going to say this quite quickly. I've said it before. Use the vocabulary you know. This word here, splendiferous. Nobody really uses it in English. Nobody uses it, but it is in the dictionary. And if you are looking for a fancy word when you have got a simple word and you find this word, splendiferous, why do you think you shouldn't use these complicated words or words you don't know? Why? Why do you think? Well, there's a couple of reasons why I would recommend not to use complicated words. One, you might use them incorrectly, and that's worse than just using a simpler word, okay? Two, not everybody in your presentation will have English as a first language. There will probably be other people who speak another language first. And so you don't want to confuse them. You want them to know what you're talking about. And third, if you try to use a complicated word, you may feel more nervous because you don't know if it's going to work. Okay. Oh, just a quick question. How many participants will be non-native English speakers? In 2020, it was about 94% of people who speak English are non-native. There are only 6% of English speakers who are native, including myself, of course. The other 94% of people are non-native, so you don't want to confuse them, okay? So here's the main point. Never use a complicated word when a simple word will do. It doesn't make you sound more intelligent. It doesn't make you sound like you know what you're talking about anymore than using a simple word. Actually, sometimes people use complicated words when they don't know what they're talking about. You often find experienced public speakers, politicians, union people, and so on, using more simple words because they know what they're talking about. And the content of their presentation and the way that they deliver it is more important than the precise words that you use. So don't get confused by using complicated words, and don't confuse your audience by using complicated words. Yeah, Carol, you could give a bad impression. Yeah. Angel, because you have to try everybody to understand what you say. Exactly. You want everybody to understand you. Why not? Okay. Oops, I've gone back. 1, 2, 1, 2. Okay, so I just said I wasn't going to teach you much vocabulary, but here are a couple of phrases and linking words that you can and should use when you're giving your presentation. Quite simply, to start with, this could be your introduction if you wanted to. To start with, I'm going to give you a brief overview of my presentation. To start with, I'm going to explain my presentation to you. Or you could use this one when you get to the first point. To start with, my first point. Then secondly, quite simply, and then the final point. And the final step, the next point. Why do we use linking words? Does anybody know? Can we type in the box? Why do we use linking words? Raoul says you sound pretentious. If you're trying to use complicated words, yes, Raoul, you do. Absolutely. You don't want to sound pretentious. You want to sound accessible, we say. Accessible language, so that everybody can access your language. Why do we use linking words? We use linking words to guide the audience so they know where you're going with your speech. To connect your speech, says Carol. Thank you, Carol. Yes, to connect your speech. Angel, because it is better to try to connect your ideas. Yeah, it helps you as well. It helps you know where you are. I'm on my next point now. Okay, good. Then my final point. If you say my final point, your audience knows that, okay, they've nearly finished. I don't have to, we're not going to be here all day. And then to conclude or to summarize, it depends how formal the event is. You could say to summarize, to conclude, in conclusion. And then what you do in your conclusion is obviously say what you said. You know that structure? Going to say it, then say what you said. Now, here's a couple of phrases for you. Do you want to repeat them out with me? Who likes me modeling and then you speaking, copying what I'm saying? Who likes doing that? I know some people do. I know last lesson, quite a lot of people were shadowing when I modeled. So I'll do it a little bit slower. I'd like you to say these out loud in your room, wherever you are. Today, I'm going to talk about. Today, I'm going to talk about presentation and public speaking. Today, I'm going to talk about tips for public speaking. My topic today is presentations and public speaking. My topic today is public speaking and presentations. Now, here's a couple of phrases that you can use towards the end. Again, I will talk about this in a moment. But again, if you want to take a photo of this, I'm happy to answer any questions. I'm happy to answer any questions. Do you have any questions? Does anybody have any questions? Please feel free to ask questions. Please feel free to ask questions. Have you all just been repeating that, Angel? Have you been saying that out loud, Carol? Fallen down? Have you been speaking out loud? Rafaela? Haoxing? Nope. Haoxing says nope. Okay. I'll keep going anyway, regardless. Okay, number 4. Speak up, but not fast. 100 words a minute. Again, imagine the room you will be speaking in. Do I need to speak quietly or do I need to speak loudly? Angel was shadowing. Thank you, Angel. It's good to know that this exercise works. It really is, actually. It's one of the things I always recommend to improve your language, to improve your English in this case, is to read out loud, to do some modelling and shadowing. And to speak clearly, says Carol. Yes, to try to speak clearly. If you speak fast, you will possibly not speak clearly. The 94% of non-native speakers might not hear you, might not understand you if you speak fast. So you want to give your mouth and your brain time to connect with each other. If you speak fast, one will get confused and the other one won't know what to say. So slow down. It's okay to speak at this speed. When you're listening to me speaking at this speed, might be a little bit slow for a live lesson, but I think you understand my point. It's better to speak slower and more clearly when you're doing a public presentation. Yeah, Carol, to speak loud is important because everybody has to hear you. Yeah, it really is. Don't whisper. Don't be nervous. You want people to hear what you're saying, which is why I say stand up. If you stand up, your chest is up, your shoulders are back, you're holding something in your hand, possibly. You can make movements with your other hand to add some flavour. Not too much because that distracts, but just a little bit of hand movement will help you be more clear. Okay, here's a couple of tips for learning language, for practicing your language. Speak whenever you can. This makes, this is obvious. Whenever you can, speak English. If you have a neighbour who speaks English, even if they're from anywhere else, India, China, or wherever, if you both speak some English, speak English with each other. It doesn't matter if you're speaking it differently. You will become familiar with different accents and different ways of saying things. So speak whenever you can. Engage in things like Facebook groups. On the italki page, we have italki community. On there, you can write with people. Obviously, you can't speak, but it's still a good exercise to practice you producing the language. Get onto the italki community and write things, add comments, and so on. Help each other out. Listen to TED Talks. TED Talks are obviously the best presentations, are all on one website. They do that thing. They often open their talk with a question. I forgot to say that in this. I'll put that back, put it in for next time. Open your presentation with a question. Have you ever thought about what it feels like to be nervous when you're doing a public presentation? I mean, I did have a question at the beginning, but I didn't quite present it like that, did I? It got you thinking about it. Listen to podcasts, obviously, and YouTube. Lots of good videos on YouTube. If you are doing listening practice when you're watching YouTube videos, do you have the subtitles on or off? Answer in the box, on or off. When you are doing listening practice, yes, Angel, TED Talks helped me to improve my listening skills more than anything else. Good. Angel, when you're doing your listening practice with TED Talks or YouTube, do you have the subtitles on or off? On or off. Subtitles on or off. What do people think? Raoul has just made a good point, actually. Record yourself. Yes. Oh, that is a brilliant tip. Nobody likes doing that. Nobody likes recording yourself, but it will help you to find out your own mistakes. Brilliant. Prepare, do all your preparation, PPP, etc. 3Ps, PEE, do all of that, and then speak into your iPhone or your Android, whatever. Speak it using the voice memo function. You could even do it while you're presenting to yourself in the mirror. Nobody likes doing it, but it's really a good tip to do. Record yourself at the same time, or video yourself even. Then you'll be able to see if you do anything strange when you speak. Ankel, at first I had subtitles on, but now I try to watch it up with them off. Great. Carol, films are so difficult to understand that I put them on. Okay, so a couple of tips when you're doing listening practice is to turn the subtitles off, because if you have the subtitles on, you're doing reading practice. But what I say to my students is you can watch the same TED Talk 4, 5 times, whatever. You can watch it more over and over again. You could, for example, first time, just listen to it with no subtitles. The second time, you could put on the subtitles of your own language. So when it's translated into your own language. Then this third time, you could do it with English on. And then fourth and fifth, have no subtitles again. Remember to write down any words you don't know in the video or the TED Talk. Write down any words you don't know, but don't stop the video to look the word up. I would say look up words in the dictionary after about the first or second time at the end of the recording. Okay, and then you'll have a list of words, and then you can look them all up at the same time, and then you go back and listen to it again and see if you can hear those words and then understand them in context of everything else. So don't stop starting to look words up in the dictionary, otherwise you lose concentration of what you're doing, and you don't get a general overview. You need to get a feeling of the whole video. Okay, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Read out loud, read silently, and read every day. Out loud, silently, every day. Newspapers, books, websites, homework that you've been given by your teacher. If you did lessons with me, you would get homework every time you have a lesson with me. And I always ask my students to revise the lesson that I've given them and read out loud any of the sentences or the longer pieces of text. Read out loud. If you've got a baby, perfect audience. If you have a baby, read out loud to your baby. They don't know what you're saying. They love it. And maybe they'll learn some English from you too. Okay. So my final tip, this is my final tip, is to practice. We've just been talking about that anyway, so I don't need to go into this in too much detail, but I can't stress this enough. Practice, practice, practice. Practice with a friend, practice with a teacher, practice with your baby, your partner. Just practice. Now, I'm going to now come to the conclusion, and I'm going to say what I said. These are the things that I said before. Be prepared. Stand up. What else? What other things can people remember? What were the other tips? Can anybody remember any of the other tips? I'll just keep going. Use the vocabulary that you know, unless you have quite a few months to learn some new vocabulary. Speak up, but not fast. About 100 words per minute. When we speak normally, we speak about 150 to 200 words a minute. When we're in a restaurant with a friend, when we're at home talking with our family, we normally speak about 150 to 200 words. Right now, I'm probably speaking about 150. But if I was doing a presentation, I would slow right down and speak at about 100 words a minute. Oh, by the way, let me go back to that previous point. 100 words a minute also helps you plan your speech when you're writing it. So if you wrote 100 words, you know that's going to be roughly a minute. And when you time yourself, if you've written 200 words, but then your recording is only 1 minute 20 or whatever, that means you're speaking too fast. Of course, I don't recommend that you read from a piece of paper. Never read from a piece of paper. But it's okay to write it out for the first draft. It's okay to write it out for the first draft and then put it into bullet points afterwards. Okay, practice, practice, practice with a friend or a teacher. Anybody got any other ideas for practicing? I did like Raoul's point about recording yourself. Any other tips, Raoul? Any other tips from anybody else? Angel says, I think that the most complicated thing at first is to try to teach your mind to not translate the words and to let your mind do it automatically. Yeah, exactly. You don't want to be translating in your head, especially while you're giving a presentation, because you'll just feel nervous if you do that, which is why I say to use vocabulary that you know already. Carol has said, maybe we can pop this up, studio. Carol has said it might be useful to use slides. Exactly, like I'm doing now. Could you imagine if I just spoke to you for 1 hour with no slides? It's very useful for your audience, especially your 94% of non-native speakers, but for anybody, to be honest with you. When you do slides, try to make them a little bit interactive, or like I've done, bits pop up. Try to make them fewer words rather than lots of words. Don't put 100 words on a slide, just bullet points, just short phrases. And then when you speak, you can expand on what you have written on the slides. Any other tips, anybody? Alex, I find it better to write out key dot points. Yeah, we call those bullet points, actually, you know, like a bullet point, rather than having the entire speech written out. Yes, I mean, I have done that before. I have read a speech word for word. One time I was so nervous. There was about 300-400 people there, and it was a really big hall, and there was a big kind of lectern with a microphone. I was so nervous that I read it out loud. I read it word for word. I watched the video afterwards, and I could just tell that I wasn't being quite so natural as I normally, well, I tried to be. I wish I had written down bullet points, and just, even if I make mistakes, it doesn't matter. As Maya Angelou says, people don't remember everything that you said. They won't remember your mistakes. That's a good point. Your audience will not remember your mistakes. Carol, what was my book about? Oh, interesting. What was your book about? My book was about education, actually. What was your book about? Maybe you could, Carol, maybe you could send me a message on italki. Find me on italki, Teacher Claire. I think I'm Claire IELTS/ESP, which is English for specific purposes. Message me, send me a link of your book. It'd be really interesting. Alex has also said, if you have your entire speech written out, you could end up losing your spot very easy. That is a really good point. Really good point. You've got so many words on the page, you don't know where you are. Really good point. Carol's going to message me. Lovely. Thanks, Carol. Okay, my final slide. Why won't it turn? Oh, final things. Just quickly then, because I've got literally 2 minutes to finish this. I will try not to speak too fast. Thank your guests. Thank you for attending. I would like to thank everybody for attending today. I'd like to thank all you guys for attending my live lesson with italki. But do thank everybody for attending your talk, and also anybody else that needs thanking. On a piece of paper, make a list of all the important people that have helped you. The people that have done the catering are always forgotten. Thank the people who have done the wonderful and delicious catering. All the people that have worked so hard to help put on the event are often forgotten. The workers that are working behind the scenes, the bar staff, the waiting staff, make sure to thank those as well as the main people who have organised your event. I've worked in catering for many years, and it was always lovely when somebody would thank catering staff. We're often forgotten. Okay, then say you're going to open up the floor for questions and contributions. I'm going to open up the floor for questions and contributions. Does anybody have any questions or contributions? Oh, my time's up. Final thing is, make sure that if you're choosing the people that are asking questions, ask from a wide range of people, women and so on, okay? I'd like to say thank you to all of you today. Gosh, I didn't realise the time was slipping away with me. Hopefully see you all on italki. If you want to book lessons with me, you are more than welcome to book lessons with me. Go to my profile, send me a message, fill out the contact form. I do lots of different things, and we have lots of other teachers giving live lessons on italki. And if you've been on these live lessons, so if you've enjoyed mine today, please tune into some of the other people. And I'd like to thank my audience for watching today. Thank you, Carol. Thank you, Ankel, Raul, Alex, Monica, everybody that has been here today. And hopefully I will see you again soon on italki. Thank you.
Este es Peter. Está aprendiendo chino. Ha intentado estudiar por su cuenta con libros, tarjetas de vocabulario y aplicaciones móviles, pero sigue teniendo problemas para hablar. Esta es María. Le encanta aprender inglés, pero no tiene oportunidades para ponerlo en práctica. Con italki, Peter y María pueden recibir clases personales online para hablar con fluidez en otro idioma. Tú también puedes aprender un idioma en italki. Empieza hoy en 3 simples pasos. Primero, elige un idioma. Inglés, alemán, chino, francés, japonés. Italki tiene profesores para cualquier idioma. Segundo, escoge un profesor. Con italki puedes escoger entre miles de profesores con experiencia de todo el mundo. Tercero, elige el horario de tu lección. Las clases de idiomas online son el mejor método para aprender con profesores nativos. Con italki tendrás un profesor de idiomas personal y conversaciones reales con hablantes nativos. Cada día miles de personas aprenden con profesores internacionales a través de italki. Encuentra un profesor hoy y domina el idioma de tu lección.
Hi everyone, it's Vicente and I teach Spanish on italki.com. And today we will be talking about 3 grammar rules to follow when you start learning Spanish. The first one is that, as you have already heard, Spanish verbs are always conjugated. That means that they have to match with the subject of the sentence. For example, there are different pronouns in Spanish. Yo, tú, él, ella, usted, nosotros, nosotras, vosotros, vosotras, and ellos, ellas, y ustedes. All these pronouns have their own conjugations, and it's very common for beginners to mix them up. So remember this. When you start to conjugate the verbs, they have to match. The second rule is very important as well. The Spanish nouns and adjectives has to be in the same level. Let me explain you this. If you have a noun that is feminine and plural, for example, las mujeres, the adjective that you have to use right after the noun has to be feminine and plural as well. For example, las mujeres españolas. It is the same with the articles las, female and plural. We use this article because, as I say, it's female and plural. The third rule I already mentioned before, and be careful, English speakers, because the adjectives in Spanish go after the noun, not before like in English. This is very common for students that learn Spanish and already speak or know English. When I say it, las mujeres españolas, españolas is the adjective, and I put it after las mujeres. In English, it would be the Spanish woman, but not in Spanish. Okay, there are some occasions where the adjectives go before the nouns. That is true, but normally this use comes out at intermediate level or advanced level, so do not worry when you are a beginner. Thanks for watching this video, and don't forget to subscribe to the italki YouTube channel over here. Take a lesson with me on italki.com by clicking on my teacher profile link in the description. Hasta luego! Hi everyone, it's Vicente, and I teach Spanish on italki.com. And today I will be talking about 7 Spanish words that are similar to their English counterpart. These words are also known as cognates. What a cognate is? A cognate is a word that has the same linguistic derivation that another word, and it looks similar, and when you pronounce it, it sounds almost the same. And here I will give you 7 cognates so you can use them in Spanish as well. The first one is alcohol in Spanish. Guess you know what it means because it sounds pretty similar than in English, doesn't it? Number 2 is conclusión. This one has a different pronunciation in Spanish, but you will understand definitely when you start learning Spanish. Number 3, hobby. This one is completely similar. We basically took this word from English. Number 4, individual. Of course, it's the same word, just different pronunciation. The next one, number 5, is piercing. Yes, we use this word with the same pronunciation and meaning. Next one, number 6, is informal. I like to use this one in my lessons to explain ways to greet and say goodbye because it's similar in English and is a word that the students understand very quickly. And the last are some words related to sports. If you're learning Spanish and you like sports, you're lucky because most of the words are cognates like football, tennis, baseball, volleyball, hockey, water polo, golf, surf, and so on. As you can see, almost all sports have cognates.
or idioms you might hear in your office or in your workplace. A student asked me a really good question the other day. He asked me whether, because I'm a native English speaker, do I know every single idiom? And the answer is no. Idioms are phrases or expressions that come from a particular place or a particular age group. So idioms are different in the UK to idioms in the United States. I have chosen 5 business idioms to talk to you about today, and you may hear them in an office in the UK or in the States. So hopefully they will be super useful for you. Idiom number 1 is the big picture. Imagine you go into a meeting and your boss says to you, you've lost sight of the big picture. What does that mean? That means that you are thinking too much about the small details of the project, and you are so interested in those little details that you don't remember what it is you're trying to achieve. So always keep sight of the big picture. The second idiom is to go the extra mile. Now imagine you're in an interview and the interviewer says to you that they are looking for someone who always goes the extra mile. What does that mean? Does it mean they want you to run around the office every day? No. The third idiom is a win-win situation. A win-win situation means everybody gains something. A really good example of this is these videos that I'm making for italki. Italki gains some content for their website, some lessons for their learners, and I have a platform where students can see me and book lessons with me. It's a win-win. Italki wins and Caroline wins. The fourth idiom is word of mouth. So an example of this is, think about how you found out about italki. Did you find italki by searching on Google, or did you find italki because one of your friends recommended it to you? Recommendations from friends are word of mouth. It can be positive or it can be negative. If your company gets bad word of mouth, it is going to be a very difficult time for your company because people really listen to the opinions of their friends. So make sure whatever you do, you have good word of mouth about it. The fifth and final business idiom is to touch base. My manager used to say this to me a lot. To touch base means to have a very quick and short meeting.
Okay, good. All right. Hello. Hello, everybody. Hi. I'm looking very carefully at the italki platform and at the YouTube platform. If you wish to leave comments, you must please push on the live comments, not the top comments. Okay, so live chat. So welcome. Just let me check, okay. I just wanted to check my audio and video, and yeah, so we can go ahead. Today, as you can see, I'm really cold. Okay, so I'm Karen, and I'm from Johannesburg, South Africa, and rather cold today. It's 12 degrees, and our houses are not made for cold, so we are cold inside the house. And because of lockdown, we haven't been able to go out and get gas. So we are wrapping up with blankets and coats and scarves and everything, and duvets, everything like that. So, yeah. Hi. Okay, that seems to be a little delayed on the italki platform. Angel, okay. And oh, Isa, there we go. Isa, it's good to see you. It's lovely to see you. We're going to continue discussing culture today, and that was really fun yesterday. So I hope that you are ready, and that other people are ready. Elisa, from Madrid, fantastic, bienvenida. Yep. Okay, I'm just looking, I'm just carefully checking because sometimes the italki platform is delayed. So I'm just checking to see who's joining us here. All right. So yesterday we're talking about um, we're talking about cultures and how, you know, when you speak English, you also need to be aware of different cultures because when you are in the international environment, very likely you will speak English as a common language. Okay, so we are talking about crossing cultures, and yesterday, oh, I better turn the noise off. There. And yeah, I don't see any more people at the moment. We will just wait for them to join us. Yesterday, we were talking about a group versus individual oriented cultures. And some people say that they are so group oriented that they cannot make any decisions for themselves. They are not allowed to. But others are individualistic, but not quite extreme to the point of America's individualism. Okay, so I think South Africa would be a great example. So when we go to different cultures, we obviously need to be made aware of this. Okay, so tell me what you think would happen if you went to a culture. And when I look down, I'm looking at the other platform. I can't lift it up, so I've just put it down there. I wonder what you think. Have you ever worked in a culture that is very, very different from your own? Now, you may be from South Spain and you've moved to Madrid, or perhaps you've moved to Germany, or perhaps you've gone from South Italy to North Italy. It doesn't have to be that drastically different. Or perhaps you want to compare it with the movies of Hollywood, which aren't a real description of America, but that's okay. I wanted to know, have you worked or lived with a different culture to your own? Has any of you lived or worked with a very different culture to your home culture? I have. I lived in England for many years. So South Africa is different in many respects, although the English speakers might be slightly more akin to the English speakers of Britain. But there are a lot of differences. The English, and I'm coming to this now, are very surprisingly, they're both individualistic and group oriented, which is very, Carol, yeah, you moved to Germany and it's so different from Italy. You felt so sad. Yeah, it is a huge culture shock. And that is very individualistic. You must have felt very lonely because Germans like to keep to themselves. They do enjoy socializing, but they really love keeping to themselves as well. Whereas in Italy, I believe you're a lot more social. Okay, so now we're going to go on to a communication, all right? And when you communicate, it depends on how direct you are or how indirect you are. Okay, so South Italy, indirect. North Italy, direct. Probably the same with Spain. Italy compared to Germany, Germany very direct, Dutch extremely direct, and Italy probably. England very indirect. Japan extremely indirect. Okay, so let's just go to this example here. Let's go to the slides, and I'm going to press present so that you can actually see the full screen. Okay. We're first going to talk about indirect cultures. So you must tell me, did you come from an indirect culture? in terms of communication? And was there a time where you've really struggled? Was there a time, Carol, perhaps, where you struggled? Yeah. It's very sad, isn't it, to go to another culture? Was there a time when you struggled to understand the meaning of the culture you were in, or when you were looking for different layers of meaning, but it wasn't there? Okay, so with indirect cultures, let me get a piece of paper. There's a layer upon a layer upon a layer of meaning. And I'll give you an example in a moment. So I want you to have the vocabulary and the understanding for speaking English in these contexts. Okay. Let me go to the next slide. All right. So I'm going to give you an example. China. All right. China can be direct, but it can be indirect as well. Okay, lots of the countryside, and traditionally they're far more indirect, but people who live in the big cities like Shanghai say it is very, 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 very direct. Okay, so in China, I've heard a lady from China say that when she was young, her mother used to say, "Oh, the sun is shining." And she used to have to know that that meant she must take the dog for a walk. Okay, so it's a lot about hinting. There's no direct communication. And the problem is that even in that culture, you can miscommunicate. And my friend told me that, who lives in Japan, he said people are trying desperately. People are very quiet in Japan because they are trying to work out what you mean. They are trying to work out the layer beneath the layer, beneath the layer, beneath the layer. And so it becomes very, very difficult to understand what other people mean. Now, Carol, do you come from, Elisa, which culture do you think you come from? And Isa, direct, indirect. I'm going to go through it in a moment, but which do you come from? All right. Okay, I will give you another example. South Africans are very direct in some ways and indirect in others, but the UK is definitely indirect. Okay, and I worked there, and in the UK, people ask you, would you like to? Instead of saying, please, would you do this? Your boss will say, would you like to? Okay. Hi, Ruben. It's good to have you. We are discussing crossing cultures and using English and understanding English in those situations. So I'm trying to help you understand English in England, but also to use your English in different situations in different cultures. Ruben, are you from a Spanish-speaking country? Spain, maybe? Do let us know. It'll be lovely. But bienvenido. It's good to have you with us today. Let me see. No one's on the italki platform yet. Okay, so when I went to the UK, at first I didn't understand it. And my boss asked me, Alicante, Spain. Good, right. It's lovely to have you. Ruben, my boss asked me to go and see a patient, but she said, would you like to see this patient? So being South African, I didn't know what she meant. I was very confused because I expected her to say, please, would you, or go and do this. I would have understood that. But would you like to, in South Africa, means I'm being polite, asking you to see this patient, but actually that's what I would really like to do, is see this patient. So there is a slight indirectness in our South African thing. So I just said, well, if you want to, you can, but I'm happy to do it, because I didn't know what she meant. I think she must have thought I was crazy. Yes, Carol is saying Germans are very direct, because they say what they say without hidden meanings, and they sometimes can seem impolite, but they weren't being impolite. Yes, and we're going to talk about that now, because when we're discussing with other people, we will find these things happening. And so it's really useful to have your input. Okay, so the people who want direct communication, who engage in direct communication, want clarity, clearness, if you want to use a non-word, clearness, clarity. Communication must be understood. Communication, I'm just looking to see if we've got any more people from italki. No, on the italki platform, no. So people want to know exactly what you mean, and they want to know when to do things, how to do it, etc. Just a moment. Oh, I can't do this. Okay. All right. So, yeah, it is very, very, very good to understand the difference, so that when we communicate normally in English in other cultures, we can actually understand the type of communication. Okay. So, indirect cultures want to be very polite, if you think of the Japanese, but direct cultures like the Dutch want to be very, very, very clear, open, and that's all. So when you think about direct communication saves time. You just say, do it now, and that's it. You don't spend 5 minutes discussing who wants to what, whether she's asking you to do something, or whether she's commanding you to do something, or whether she wants to do it. It saves time, and it saves miscommunication. Okay, so that's the positives. All right, and it gives exact expectations. I think in a job environment, if people do not know what is expected of them, it can be very, very confusing. Have you experienced that? Have you, Ruben, have you perhaps moved cultures? Are you aware of moving cultures, and even within Spain, and the differences in communication and how to communicate? Okay, but it can seem very harsh and brutal to other cultures, okay? Particularly with reprimands or conflict. So in Japan, okay, I'll give you an example just now about Japan, but in Germany, you'll say, don't do that, don't be stupid, that's rubbish, go and do it again, something like that, okay? But if a boss gets cross, okay, you know exactly where you stand. And South Africans are like that as well. And so people like me, I'm different in my personality. So I do find it difficult here. I like the British way of doing it, where they say things very softly. Okay. Yeah, my main boss is from Germany. Yeah. Okay. So they are very different. It's just a different way. It's not wrong. But to people from different backgrounds, it can seem negative. Okay, so it's good to be able to use this as a discussion point. All right, so for example, in Japan, there was a person who was a British expat. He'd been living there for 5 years. Okay. Somebody broke a bowl, and it was on the floor. And he came back and he said, who broke the bowl. Now in Japan, you cannot be. Yes, yeah. Okay, so Ruben is commenting that he's a great person by being direct, okay, but, and he'll comment something else. So now I'm going back to the story about Japan. There was a bowl broken. And when the boss came in, he said, who was it? Japan, you can't be so direct. You have to enable them to save face. All right, to save a face. So you have to say something else. So they kept on blaming it on ghosts, and he knew that they didn't believe it in ghosts, so he didn't understand. And eventually he realized, you know what, a better solution is give the facts. The bowl is broken. Please, will you solve the problem? I still can't see any more comments from it. Okay. So I don't know, tell me, is Carol, which part of Italy? I think you said you came from North Italy. Yeah, so you wouldn't criticize somebody, okay? You would never criticize somebody to their face, although there are ways in Japanese society of criticizing people behind their backs, okay? Whereas the Germans will just do it to your face. If they're going to criticize, they will be honest, open, that's it. They'll criticize you to your face. All right. Okay. So if you go to Japan, perhaps, and you give a yes, from the north of Italy, I thought so. Carol, yeah. If you go to Japan and you give a presentation in English, okay, you might get people looking at you as though they're very puzzled and they don't know what you mean. Because if you give a presentation that is very direct, they will expect layers of other meaning. Now, you don't have to learn how to speak like them. All you need to do is to present. And let's see what your solution is. What would your solution be if you went to Japan to present a paper and they didn't seem to understand because they were looking for layers of meaning? What would you do, Carol or Ruben? Anybody else, please let me know. What would you do? It would be really nice to know. Okay, well, good. I think that it is just good to explain that words mean more or less what they mean. We use a lot of metaphor, so it's not exactly without layers of meaning, but we can explain that there's no hidden meanings. So it is very clear. Ruben, what about with your boss? Do you find it easy to cope with the directness, or is it something? How would give an example of what he would say and what you would say in the same situation? Okay, why don't you do that? Give an example of what he would say, one sentence. Say, you're late. What would you say in the same way? Okay, but for we can certainly gain because it takes all the hard work out of trying to understand. Okay, so Carol is saying that she thinks that the Asian culture, the Asian culture is very different to European culture. So you have to learn and understand how they think, and then you can act. Yes, I think so. If you don't have enough time, then you have to just say, look, I know that you will try to understand layers of meaning, but you don't need to. It is just means what it says. So don't look for other meaning. Okay, so that's what you could say. Yeah, I'm going to go back. Okay, so in terms of your own personality, and I'll share something about, now there's no worksheet, don't worry. Okay, can you see me? Okay, can you hear me? Can you hear me? Okay, good. Sorry, I don't know what happened. Okay, it was something odd. Where do you stand in terms of direct versus indirect communication in your own personality? Because that does change. So direct communication is a cold culture. Remember, we're talking about cold and hot cultures. Direct communication is a cold culture thing. Yeah, and indirect is a warm culture. Now, I don't know where Japan stands. I think it's very, very in between. But on the indirectness scale, they're probably the most extreme. Yes, yes, yes. Okay, good. I am very, very, I'm in between indirect and direct. So I like to be indirect, but I have had to learn to be very, very, very direct in the South African culture. Yes, you say Japan is indirect, but at the same time, very hierarchical. Yes, a hot culture group. Yes, that's very classic hot culture. Very strong. Okay, Ruben's giving me an example. He says that we have to do some action, and he says it very directly. He doesn't explain why. Okay, Ruben says, if I was in the same situation with my work colleagues, I would explain why we need to execute this action. Okay, and that's a little bit related to process. The Italians are the same. You need to understand the reason and the logic and the thinking behind something before you can accept it or take it on board. Whereas the Germans will assume you already know why it needs to be done, and so they just say do it. Okay. So yeah, that's just a different approach. Very interesting, these. Okay, so now I'm going to stop sharing for that one. Okay, and then I'm going to go and share the screen again, and we're going to go and share the opinion. I still didn't tell you. What do you think? Where are you more indirect or direct? On a scale of 1 to 10, just put 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, whichever number. Let me know. Are you more direct or more indirect? Are you so let's keep I'm thinking direct as 1 and then indirect as 10. Okay, so if you're more direct, you would be more down that scale. So I'm probably a 4. If you're more indirect, 10 would be Japanese. Okay. Alex is saying that you don't say no to your boss in Japan. If your boss says that pigs can fly, then yep, he's right. Pigs do fly. I've just had a discussion with a Russian girl who tells me that if the president says you must drink disinfectant, even in a joke, that's the truth. It's an irrefutable truth. So yes, Alex is a 9. You're very indirect because I prefer to avoid conflict and awkwardness. Issa says she's a 7. Yeah, wow. Yeah, I prefer to, yeah, I also avoid conflict and awkwardness. Robert says in Spain, in general, we're pretty direct in general. Maybe direct is pretty direct. So yeah, indirect 8. Direct would be more 4 or 5, because 1 is direct and 10 is indirect. Carol, indirect 8. Ruben 8. Very, very interesting. Okay, that's okay. So yeah, that's fascinating for me. I'd love to know, Carol, so you come from the north of Italy, but you're still quite high. Elisa, where are you from? Are you from France or from Germany or from Spain or from maybe even Italy or another country? I don't know. Sorry, my phone is slipping down. That's very interesting, depending on the situation. So you adapt all the time already. Okay, good. I like to explain why we need to do tasks, says Ruben. Yeah. So Robert is maybe a 3 and a 4. There you go. Yeah, I thought so. Yeah, information. So the why is very, very, very important, not just the what. Veneto, we are quite cold. Yes, yeah. And remember, that is hot versus cold culture, and cold cultures tend to come from cold places. Hot cultures come from hot places. We are not saying anything negative about cultures. It's just different. Okay, nothing negative, just different. And all right, well done. Okay, this has been a really good session. It's very interesting. But Carol, you were saying that you're still an 8. But despite the fact that you're quite indirect, 8 closer to indirect, 1 being closer to direct. Okay. Right. I hope I didn't say that wrong. Okay. Then this is a big, big one. All right. If you state an opinion, okay, this is now going on to opinion, all right? Personal interpretation is part of the hot cultures. Impersonal interpretation of opinion is part of the cold cultures. Yes, and so when you interpret somebody's opinion personally, it means that you take it on emotionally. Okay, so if you express an opinion like, I don't like your jacket, it can be seen as undermining of somebody's value and worthiness as a human being. Okay, this is particularly true, I know, in Latin American countries. So they will take offense at very strongly expressed opinion, even if you express an opinion that is different to theirs. It doesn't matter what the subject is. It doesn't matter if it's not about them. They will still take it very personally. Okay. And so I found when I was in Guatemala, I had to be very careful about my opinion because it could be seen as undermining other people or seeing them as lesser human beings. Okay. Right, but I'm going to just skip this for a moment and go to the non-personal interpretation. I'll come back to this. Okay. They don't think how people's opinions affect others. So if they say, oh, I don't like your hat, okay, I don't like your nose, then they don't think how it might affect other people. For them, it's just an opinion. it can be an opinion isn't so important, okay? So with the Dutch people, they're very straightforward. They'll tell you everything clearly. But it really, really, really doesn't, if they disagree with you, they'll still have you as their best friend. They'll still think highly of you, and they will engage with you a lot. So it's more of a logical approach. It's more of a stepping back from the statement approach. And you will see it happens a lot in politics. Okay, politics are terrible. They attack each other like crazy. But then they are the best of friends. Even in journalism, okay, the people switch off their emotion, and what's important to them in this non-personal interpretation of opinion, what's important is the discovery of the truth. The truth is what matters the most in these particular cultures. Okay, so just let me see if I've got anything else. Okay, I'll go back to that slide then. All right, so have you ever you personally, gone into a culture where the interpretation of opinion, even if it's politics, or if it's about politics or the weather or the climate, is taken very, very personally? Have you ever been in a culture like that? I know because I have. What I've had to find out, even in England, it is a little bit this way, not totally, because there are groups of people who can actually step back and just look at the facts and not the emotion. So what I found was helpful was that you affirm what they say. Yes, I'm glad you like that coat. It certainly is a beautiful red color. I think for myself, I might want something different. So you restate yours very gently, or if it's something about work, you can say, if they're very wrong, okay, if they say, now we should all swallow some sort of poison to get rid of the coronavirus, you would say, oh, that's interesting. That's fascinating. Have you ever thought that perhaps that might have some side effects? Or is it possible that we might not survive swallowing poison? Or I wonder if those phrases in English are a very soft kind of phrasing. Okay. Okay, so Carol has a statement. She says, sometimes if you like someone very much and you take care of him, you try to be, to take a personal interpretation. In other words, to take care of their opinions. But sometimes it can get, sometimes you can just be direct and rude. In your situation, it would be rude. Sometimes because you care about him too much. Yeah. So it depends on whether you will take his opinion and whether you will worry about his opinion or not. And so it can vary in different situations. You're quite right. So it can be quite a personal thing, and it can be very helpful in personal situations to be a little bit more personal in the interpretation of things. Okay, sometimes in white South Africa versus black South Africa, we have to be very careful not to state our opinion too strongly, because black people can feel that we're trying to take over the conversation, or we're trying to rule the conversation. So we do have to be very careful to affirm their opinion, understand it, then say, have you thought? Is it possible? I wonder if. Those are great phrases in English. I don't know about it in your language, but those are the things. I wonder if such and such. I wonder if it's possible that we, might die of the poison if we drank it. So yeah, it's just, so not a direct statement, again, indirect. Okay, or else you just don't express your opinion at all. Perhaps in Japan, you would never express your opinion. Okay, so let me know, where do you stand? Okay, where do you think your culture stands? First of all, let's do that. Where does your culture stand? Okay, and I'm going to be very clear here, all right? I'm going to make sure that I get it right this time. In terms of opinion, where does your culture stand? Yeah, cold culture, impersonal interpretation. Hard culture, very personal, very emotional interpretation of opinion. So cold culture, non-personal interpretation, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is in the middle, and then personal interpretation of something, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Where do you stand? I know that probably, sorry, your culture. My culture tends to be a little bit brash. So sometimes it will be a non-personal interpretation of the opinion, but in other times, I can't really tell where my entire culture stands, because I don't think I can take one culture in South Africa. I think we're emotionally quite sensitive, so we wouldn't be like the Germans. But I would probably lean slightly more towards the personal interpretation of opinions. So I would be 6. Non-personal, I can actually, in many situations, just completely switch off emotion in academic situations and argue a point, and I can be a 1 on non-personal interpretation. But that's just personally how I can change. So I don't know what you think. What do you think you will be? What do you think you? Yeah, what do you think is your preference? Okay, I'm just going to write something here. Okay, I'm going to just write something on the screen. Just a moment. Where are you on the scale? That'll be useful. Where are you on the scale? And I'm just going to add a slide, and I'm going to add, yeah, it's okay. I can now share it. Fine. Let me go back to sharing that. With political matters, yeah, you're very impersonal. Yeah. It can be very much that way. I find that people can really go for it with the impersonal. All right. Now I'm going to write something on the screen. I always forget. Because I want to go. I want to tell you about another versus. Sorry. Task versus relationship. Okay. All right. So let's see who else has written a comment. Okay. This is a bit easier to understand, okay, and to analyze. Remember that we're making generalizations. Generalizations help us to start understanding other people, but they're not useful as for stereotyping, okay? So you might get a German who's very disorganized, who is very indirect. Yeah, there are individuals who are very different to the national characteristic. But with generalization, we're trying to start understanding different cultures so we can engage with them. And yeah, as I said, in international context, you may be required to speak in English, and to have these words and phrases and differences are useful. Okay, the next thing then for everybody to think about is task center. I'm coming to this now. Task-centered cultures versus relationship-centered cultures. Okay, so task-centered cultures are those who just get the work done, all right? No talking to other people at work much, no socializing after work. You just got to get your work done. Okay, so it's about doing versus relationship. All right, so relationship with oriented cultures will get work done, but they might do it together, or they might talk while they're doing it quite a lot, and maybe the work gets done slower, but it still gets done. However, there's a lot of relationship building. Okay, so relationship will happen so that you can find the correct plumber. You will find someone who has a relationship with somebody else so that you get the right plumber into your house. Whereas task-centered cultures, you will look for the ones that have got the highest recommendation. Okay, so their work is of you think is of a high standard. Okay, so task-centered cultures are, again, like the German people. They get things done. They don't worry about their relationships at work. What's important is their relationships at home and with their friends. Sometimes it's nice to get along with work colleagues, but they must just get the job done. In, say, southern Italy, southern Spain, it's about talking to people. In Africa, it's about acknowledging the humanity of the other person before you get anything done. That comes secondary, okay? That is second. So you say, hello, how are you? I hope you're well, hope your children are well, etc. Before you say, will you fill my car up with petrol? Or before you go to get your goods scanned at the supermarket, you just have a conversation. And as they're putting through the till, they will talk to you about their life and how they're feeling and what's happening. So it's very, very important in an African culture to show that you acknowledge that somebody else is a human being through your relationship with them. Whereas perhaps, let's say, a Dutch person might come, they will say, fill my car up, please. And that's it, okay? No talking, no wasting time doing other things. What's important is car filled up, then I go, that's it. You will find that task-centered cultures are often are cold. Yes, they're often in big cities, but relationship-centered cultures are in warmer areas, they're in rural areas, and yeah, so that is very important. I would like you to tell me, where do you stand on a task-centered versus relationship-centered culture? So task is cold, and it's 1, 2, 3, 4. How important are the relationships? Relationships are always important to some extent, even in task-centered cultures, but it's about how you do your work. All right. So with relationship-centered cultures, they will do it. Maybe the workmen will talk to each other and sing together and that kind of thing. You might ask a friend of a friend of a friend to come in and work for you rather than looking for the best person. Whereas a task-centered culture is just about getting the task done in the least amount of time and in the most efficient way, and relationships come second. Okay, so where do you stand? Task being 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 is in the middle, and relationship being 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I think I personally about a 6 or 7 on the relationship thing, but they are very often at work. Yeah, there we go. Often at work, I have to be task focused. So there's no real choice. Okay, so in Italy, Carol says, relationships are very important in Italy. Business, love, family relationships are important. But in the north, the task is becoming very important. So maybe about 50%. You're about 5. Yeah. I know. It's very difficult. It's not an accurate assessment. Okay, it's not a precise assessment. It's a more or less assessment. It's good and it's fun, but it's not actually very, very. Can't tell you where you really stand. Okay, so I'm just trying to think of the other aspects where you would. Oh yes, yeah, the concept of time. Let me just, I'll write this again. I'm putting it bigger and better color. Okay, so here is where Africa differs from a little bit of the rest of the world. Okay, so Africa tends to have African time. Everything's done on African time. You start a meeting at 2, maybe you arrive at 4 o'clock. Okay. If you start a meeting at 2 in Guatemala, if you get married at 3 o'clock in Guatemala, maybe you start when people arrive, which is maybe 5 o'clock. All right. So that's a different concept of time. So time isn't as important as relationships. So if you are with somebody and you have an appointment, the person who you are with right now is more important than the person who you will have an appointment with in 10 minutes time. So you spend time with them. They must wait. That's okay. For people who work in a Western context, even in Japan, all these places, it's a cold culture factor, okay? But definitely you must be on time. That is important. You are respecting the other person's dignity. You're respecting their use of their time. You're the person who's waiting for you. You're not late because you're respecting that time is short, and that those people can then go. You meet and then you go away to meet with other people to go to your family. So you don't waste people's time. You want to spend time with your family, so you absolutely efficient with your time. This is how you spend those 5 minutes. That's how you spend those 5 minutes, and it carries on like that. Okay, so that is a cold culture, Western feature. Western people are very conscious of time. It's even if relationships are there. Okay, but African definitely, some of the South American cultures, time, what's that? That's not important. Okay, the person is. All right, so where do you stand? Let me see, where do you stand? Are you more of a time-oriented person, or time doesn't matter? Time being 1, 2, 3, 4. And then time doesn't matter being 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. Okay, I think I'm probably, I don't know where I stand now. It's a bit difficult because I have to be on time for all my lessons precisely. So I would be very strongly in the Western culture. Okay, so in Switzerland, time is very, very important. Yeah. Okay, and they complain bitterly if the train from Italy is 4 minutes late. I was there, I heard it, the complaints. 4 minutes late instead of exactly every millisecond on time. But in Italy, the north, it's half important, but in the south, not so much. Thank you, Carol. That's really, really helpful. Yeah, and I think that is I'm trying to think of the other things now. Unfortunately, I didn't realize I would go through the slides so quickly. So I don't have that much more. But as you can see, Italy is very, very much, and Spain are very, very much on the cold culture side. And so I hope that this has given you an understanding of cultural differences and how to engage the words you need to engage with those cross-cultural situations. That's as far as I can go. I can't remember. The one thing was hospitality. I can't remember the other things right off the top of my head. I'm not good at doing that. I need to see it in front of me. So I do apologize, but there are other things, and I'm sure that you will engage nicely. Okay, so tomorrow we do pronunciation again, just to recap, and then the following day we'll do stress management. And now if, okay, so 5 in the north. Okay, Ruben, you're saying that Japanese culture is astonishing with respect to the concept of time. They are extremely punctual. Okay, okay. And then Carol says it is 5 in the north and 15 in the south. Okay, so it's a bit like African culture. So it's African time operates in the south of Italy. And Ruben says, very similar to Italy. Erika says, well, in Ecuador, it's not important. For example, if you have a meeting at 1500 hours, you can arrive at 15:30 and it's okay. You see. That's just amazing to me. As I said, in Ecuador, Guatemala, all those countries, time's not that important, even in business cultures. Yeah, and that it can be for us as South Africans, it's actually extremely difficult because we have a cold culture, white people with very hot culture, very extremes of cultures. So hot culture, mostly Black people are hot cultures, and so our potential for conflicts is often there. It's not a race thing, it's often just a cultural thing. So we've had to learn to adapt. We haven't done it always very well, but we've had to learn again and again and again how to adapt to people from different cultures. Can you imagine starting Parliament 3 hours late? You try to vote for something and they're not there. It's just chaotic. So it has had to move to save everybody's time and to be respectful to everybody's time. Things have had to be on time. Yeah, I think in more relaxed cultures, it's not so important. But yeah, I think that will be all for today. I've enjoyed your participation. Don't forget pronunciation tomorrow, and then the next day, stress management. Okay, that'll be a fun one, and I'll be writing a lot. So you can participate in that quite a lot. Pronunciation is pronunciation, and we'll try and do a game. Okay, and we'll see what happens tomorrow. Thank you for your participation, and goodbye, and I'll see you next time. Jeffrey, can you please put up my number? Thank you for booking a lesson on italki.com/teacher 5666908. All right. Thank you, everybody, and take care. Bye-bye.